Absolutely loads to get into, so let's get right into it. Mark, let's start with Manchester United. The interim managerial latest, what is it?
Yeah, significant 24 hours for Manchester United as they close in on that man. You can see behind us now, Michael Carrick. He looks like he's going to become the new Manchester United interim head boss. It's off the back of what has been a number of days where Jason Wilcox has been leading the chase to try and find the man they believe that can replace, on an interim basis, Ruben Amorim. Discussions have been happening with Carrick and his representatives over the final details about what the contract and what the situation will look like. There's a thought process as well that Darren Fletcher will stay on and will become a part of Michael Carrick's backroom team. One of the clues, I guess, really was Adam Lawrence, who was at Newcastle United managing their under-21s. He handed his notice in. He's going to be leaving Newcastle. You don't very often hand your notice in unless you've got another job lined up. He was also a part of Michael Carrick's backroom team at Middlesbrough as well. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, another man that's been in the frame for Manchester United, there was discussions over the course of the weekend, but there was no second round of discussions, whereas Manchester United have held further talks with Michael Carrick today. Clearly they've seen something they liked. They liked his ideas, they liked his philosophy, they liked what he thought Manchester United should be, hence why they decided to go back in and discuss in more detail and at length exactly what they see the project looking like between now and the end of the season. He was actually a really successful manager at Middlesbrough, did everything but get them promoted. When he went in, they were in the bottom half of the Championship, really struggling for form, and he turned them into a side that got to the playoff semi-final in the Championship, beaten by Coventry. In the second season, he took them to the League Cup semi-final, played some attractive football, developed young players like Morgan Rogers, who's probably the best player in the Premier League right now. So he's got a good track record. Ultimately, he got sacked in the summer because Middlesbrough and their hierarchy didn't feel he got them to where they wanted, which is, of course, a Premier League return. But clearly that someone had all the things, that were just going right for him. He was ticking the right boxes. Things were in the right direction, developing players, playing attractive football and trying to get them into the Premier League. He just couldn't get them over that final hurdle. So, yeah, just a matter of time now before we get what we believe to be confirmation from Manchester United that Michael Carrick will be the interim head coach.
Right, Mark, I've got a development. Wayne Rooney has just come out and said he was asked if he'd join Carrick on his coaching staff. He said, of course I would. It's a no-brainer if that's the situation. But I think that the club needs people around the place. So whether it's Michael goes in, for instance, Fletch or John O'Shea or myself or whoever, it needs people around the club who know football. And Roy Keane, I think. Would Wayne Rooney, given his managerial track record, be a good addition?
Wayne Rooney, I think, picked up 19 points at Plymouth Argyle. I watched 15 of those points. Whatever it was, when I turned up to watch Wayne Rooney at Home Park, the team were brilliant. Played some really attractive football. They had good young players, and there was a clear identity at times. They just clearly, over a longer period of time, lacked what they needed. I think Wayne Rooney, with his experiences at Derby, at Plymouth, at Birmingham, and now having had some time out of the game, will be a far better coach than he was 6 months or 12 months or 24 months ago. The fact that he understands what Manchester United's about, the fact that he is their greatest ever goal scorer, I don't think that will do them any harm by having his input, his voice around that dressing room, particularly when you've got a young striker like Benjamin Sesko, who there is a lot of expectation on. If he's got Wayne Rooney in his ear, just talking him through it, teaching him things on the training pitch, I think that could be brilliant.
Sorry to interrupt. So 15 of those 19 points, you were there.
Yeah.
Moral of the tale, should have signed you up. But I want to stop you because Carve, could all of this be derailed because we found out in the last hour Xabi Alonso is available? Would it not be negligent of Man United to go, hang on, that's a class act, let's try and get him in?
But you're talking about Xabi Alonso, who used to play for Liverpool.
Doesn't matter. If he's a top manager, does it matter?
I would find it difficult to imagine him becoming the manager of Manchester United. But having said that, lots of things would have happened at Manchester United are difficult to have predicted. Now, Michael Carrick becoming the interim manager or interim head coach was definitely not in the script. When Ineos bought 30% of Manchester United and took over the running of the club, they came out and said they were going to make Manchester United great again. They were going to bring the glory days back to United. Nowhere did they say that we are going to have somebody like Michael Carrick as our manager until the end of the season. Now, take nothing away from Michael Carrick. Fantastic player. But let's be honest, if Manchester United were looking for a full-time manager during the summer, Michael Carrick would not get the job. Now, I wish him the best. I wish him well. This is a fantastic opportunity for him, because if he does well, and by doing well, all I'm saying is finishing in the top 5, getting in the Champions League, then he has a good chance of getting the job on a full-time basis. But my fear is that the problems at Manchester United cannot be solved by a manager. And I've been saying the same thing for 20 years, and I've stopped saying it because I'm bored of saying it. But the problems at Manchester United are to do with the ownership structure. And until that changes, I don't think anything really is going to change at Manchester United.
Mark, I want to go back to Xabi Alonso. Now, over the last, Liverpool are unbeaten in 9, I think, 9 or 10. So Arne Slot has managed to quieten the noise around him. Given Xabi Alonso's available, and given, as Carve says, he used to play for Liverpool, should Arne Slot be worried? Is there a chance that Liverpool might go, there's only a short window that this bloke's going to be available, we need to get him now?
Well, he was linked with Liverpool before he joined Real Madrid. I think the Liverpool hierarchy would avoid at all costs making any type of managerial change during the course of a season. There is still a Champions League to play for. They still could get into Europe and, of course, the FA Cup as well. So there are still things that Arne Slot could achieve this season. What happens if he goes and wins the Champions League and the FA Cup and does the double? People won't be talking about him departing Liverpool. They'll be talking about continuing to back him and build on what he's already done in the short space of time that he's been there. But I think what this does with Xabi Alonso is it will put a number of clubs on red alert, because he is the type of manager that potentially could be top 6 material. You know, there's a lot of talk about Pep Guardiola. What happens if Mikel Arteta doesn't deliver a trophy at Arsenal this season? Do they decide to stick with him again?
But don't you go now if you're a club? Because he will go.
Potentially, yes. He could potentially go and you could miss that opportunity. I think with the situation, 8 months at Real Madrid, you know, and they're 4 points behind Barcelona, a financially unstable Barcelona. They lost in the Spanish Super Cup last night against Barcelona, which is not acceptable. You know, second place is the first loser as far as Real Madrid fans are concerned. You know, you cannot be behind Barcelona at any point. I also think, you know, the success he had at Bayer Leverkusen, but he's still very green. You know, despite the 14 major trophies, despite the World Cup, despite 2 Euros, despite all the things he's achieved, he's still very new as a coach. And clearly, the philosophy he has when it comes to playing the game, it didn't work for Real Madrid. So why would it work for Liverpool? Why would it work for Manchester United?
We will revisit Xabi Alonso real quick.
I think Real Madrid is a special case, though. I think what happened with Alonso is he went in there, he tried to take on some big egos in the dressing room. He tried to change the way they played, made it a little bit more like Mourinho football, more defensive, more counter-attacking, and the players weren't really having it by and large. I think his methods would work at a lot of clubs, but I'm not sure they were ever going to work at Real Madrid.
If we have time at the end of the show, I'd like to come back to Xabi Alonso, if you wouldn't mind. But I now want to talk Lucas Paquetá at West Ham. He wants to get out. He wants to go back to Brazil. Right, we've got some more breaking news for you as well. Apparently, Michael Carrick is very keen for his former assistant at Middlesbrough, Jonathan Woodgate, to join him on the coaching staff at Manchester United. Not clear yet whether United are prepared to agree to Carrick's wishes, but the former Leeds defender could well be joining Carrick, which looks like he's going to get the job, doesn't he, at Manchester United. Quick word on that. Good appointment, Jonathan Woodgate?
Absolutely. I watched him at close quarters down at Bournemouth. He took Bournemouth into the playoffs. Unfortunately, they got beaten by Brentford that year that Thomas Frank took Brentford into the Premier League. But worked with players like Danjuma, who went on to be a success in the Champions League, in La Liga. Played a good, attractive brand of football. He came to Bournemouth, actually, as someone to work as a coach under Jason Tindall. 2 weeks later, found himself as the head coach. So before he'd even got his feet under the table, he was the main man making decisions. Did really well, didn't get the job on a full-time basis, but had success in the time that he was there. Obviously, we know about his playing career. Leeds, Real Madrid, been around a long time. He's coached a long time, worked with good people, good guy. And again, I could understand why Michael Carrick would want him at Manchester United because of the experiences he has in the game. And you just get a feeling, you know, Wayne Rooney as a striker coach, Jonathan Woodgate there with experience, Darren Fletcher there. It feels like a bit of an old boys club. But what you've got is a lot of people that have had huge success in the game as players that are all on the same page, all understand each other and all understand what it takes to be operating at the highest level.
Didn't some of that for West Ham to navigate this situation, Carve?
Very, very difficult. I think the reason he wants to go back to Brazil is purely for personal reasons. Yeah. For his own happiness and the happiness of his family, he just wants to go home. Of course, everybody knows that he's been deeply affected by this FA betting case, which threatened to end his career. Back in July, he was cleared of spot-fixing charges after a 2-year investigation. So for 2 years, he had this hanging over him. And now he just feels, you know what, I want a change of scene. I want to go home. I want to go to Flamengo. Now, the only issue is that West Ham are deep in relegation trouble. They're 7 points away from safety. Can they really afford to sell their best player? How would it look if the board sanctioned his sale?
But how do you keep an unhappy player who wants out? What do you do?
Well, do you sit down with him and say, please, Lucas, look at the situation we're in. Just hold on until the summer. We'll see what we can do in the summer. We know you want to go to Flamengo. We know they're one of the biggest clubs in South America. They're the champions of South America, champions of Brazil as well. We know the Brazilian transfer window is open until March. But please just bear with us. Give us another 5 months. Try and keep us in the Premier League. Then we will revisit this. I think the other issue is the money Flamengo are putting on the table is not going to be enough to tempt West Ham at the moment. I think at the moment they're offering around 30 million euros, which is 26 million pounds. That is not enough for West Ham.
But Mark, we saw Lucas Paquetá get that red card. He's clearly very emotional. The whole situation has been difficult for him. If he says to West Ham, I want out, surely they've got to let him go, whether there's enough money on the table or not.
Absolutely, and that's the problem. Do you have an unhappy player who can't contribute to the team, or do you just have to accept, actually? I did an interview with David Sullivan, who had a very similar situation with Dimitri Payet, who was desperate to leave, absolutely desperate to leave, said he's never going to play for the football club ever again. Let me go. If you don't let me go, I won't go. And in the end, they sold him for what they believed less than market value. But David Sullivan's mantra was, I cannot keep an unhappy player at the football club, despite what I believe are the best interests in the football club. I have to do what's right for the player as much as myself and the team. Carver made a really interesting point there. The Brazilian transfer window is open until March. Maybe, possibly, could there be some sort of agreement? They say, look, Lucas, give us everything you can for the next 6 weeks, 7 weeks. Let's get us away from the bottom three. And if we're in a healthy, safe position before the Brazilian window shuts, then we will talk about potentially letting you go. But we need everything for the next 6 or 7 weeks.
But the problem then would be, if they were to sell him in March, they wouldn't be able to sign a replacement.
But if they sign a replacement now, then they've got one through the door.
If they sell him, they're going to have to sell him now. I would make the point as well that West Ham don't want to sell him. West Ham have not received any formal offers for him. Another point I would make is that it's got nothing to do with money. If he was to return to Flamengo, he would be taking a pay cut. This is just for personal reasons only. That's what it's about.
Just one point you made there about the red card. He is the type of player you might need in a relegation scrap because he's got that emotional presence. He's got that physicality.
He's a really good player.
He's a top player. Linked with Manchester City at one stage.
85 million.
He brings so much. And actually, right now, that's probably what you need in this environment. You need character, you need personality, you need players that wear their heart on their sleeve and they're prepared to give everything for the team. And again, that's another reason why West Ham would say, at the minute, we can't let you go. no win in their last 10 Premier League matches. They're under serious pressure. 7 points the gap with a weaker goal difference. And losing the star man alongside Jarrod Bowen could be disastrous.
Yeah, indeed.
Bueno, al final el Rayo ya sabemos que viene de una dinámica negativa, pero ha ido poco a poco a mejor. Creo que han hecho un partidazo y a lo mejor un empate hubiese sido más justo porque ellos sí que es verdad que han chutado más y a lo mejor han tenido alguna más. Pero bueno, yo creo que también por su dinámica de que les ha costado empezar a ganar y tal, no sacan los puntos, pero creo que si siguen trabajando así pueden estar ellos muy tranquilos de que les va a salir las cosas. Sí, yo creo que él era el que más ganas tenía de ganarnos porque al final somos como los alumnos y que te gane el alumno es una mierda, pero bueno, lo queremos mucho, lo seguimos respetando como entrenador y más como persona, así que toda la suerte es para él. Bueno, sí, está pasando un mal momento, yo lo sé, el equipo yo creo que hay gente que es un poco consciente, pero yo sé de primera mano que lo está pasando mal y creo que es el que más se lo merece porque es el que lo da todo y eso es lo más importante. No me gustaría cruzarme con Barrio, porque el playoff es un equipo que siempre se me da mal, siempre nos complica la vida y creo que es muy complicado. Bueno, lo que quiero es ir a México y si además quedó Pichichi ya ese es un regalazo, pero lo importante es lo de hoy que hemos ganado y nos vamos a México.